four,
What's live?
two.
You didn't count fast enough.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the New York City Tech Talent Draft virtual panel. We have a great set of panelists for everyone here tonight from Trello, Chat ID, Liquid Talent, Switch, and Samal. Of the group, we have 4 folks who are based in New York, 1 who's based in Austin, Texas. Your goal for the evening, figure out who the outsider is. So we'll start off with some quick intros going through the panelists. My name is Brian. I work for a company called Uncubed that's based here in New York. And our goal is to connect the world to startups, their careers, their skills. We do that through events, we do it through tutorial content, we do it through digital classes. This is what our logo looks like. We are Uncubed. So we'll move ourselves down the line now, and I actually see Liz from Trello. So Liz, do you want to jump in? We're going to try and follow this format for our panelists tonight. If you can give first your name, the company that you are with, what music you are listening to most right now, and then a brief description of your company.
Got it. I'm taking notes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hi. My name is Liz Hall. I am with Trello. The music I'm listening to most is anything that gets my 2 children to sleep. Third. Company description.
Company description, yes.
Okay, so Trello, if you don't know, our old description was, I'm wearing it on my shirt, organize anything together. I have a new word that I'm going to try out with you guys for the first time. Trusted by millions, Trello is a visual collaboration tool that creates a shared perspective on any project. It helps you organize your life in a flexible, fun, and rewarding way. So that was, you heard it here first, people. But Trello, if you don't know, it's a great tool for anybody, anywhere, working on anything to use. It's completely free, and I can go more on about it, but we have some other wonderful people here to talk, so I'll let them speak now.
Excellent. Up next, let's slide this over to Justin from Chat ID. Are you there, Justin? All right, let's take a quick bounce over to Rotem from Samal while we work out some keys here.
Hey all, so I'm Rotem from Samal. Samal, for those of you who are not familiar yet with our product, we are a data analytic platform that aims to summarize, aggregate, analyze, and sync all of your social media platforms in one place. Our main users are social media marketers, small to medium-sized business owners who really want to use their own data, elevate it, and gather the bigger picture from their day-to-day basic, performances. This is my first American New York City-based startup. I've worked in Israeli startups before, and my guilty pleasure music is 80 music. So the bigger the hair, the bigger the shoulder pads, that's my cup of tea. Yeah. Thank you.
Excellent. Yarden, I hear you laughing, so we will cut to you next.
Hi. My name is Yarden Tadmore, and I'm the founder and CEO of Switch app. Here's our app. Oops. Here it is right here. And Switch app is a mobile app that it's a job matching app. So you log in, you import your resume from LinkedIn, or you set it up yourself, and we scan the web for jobs that are relevant for your background, and we send them to your phone through our app. And then like a little bit like dating apps, you can match with employers if you hit the like button on a job, and then you get to chat with the employer if they like you back. And you can really quickly this way connect with a lot of startups, a lot of even large companies like eBay, Facebook, Amazon. We've got hundreds of companies on our platform. And my background is I have been with a lot of Israeli startups in New York. I've helped build 4 startups that 3 of them were acquired by AOL, Yahoo, and another startup that I was with is valued at over $1 billion, called Taboola. And my music is I'm with Rotem and in the 80s Club. Yeah.
All right, will we hit the trifecta? Scott, what music are you listening to, and what company are you here?
Yeah, let's go first. So my name's Scott Ann. I am not listening to 80s. That's not the top of my charts. I'm actually into, well, I guess maybe it's 80s, but it's Rolling Stones. I'm listening to a lot of the Stones right now because I'm taking guitar, so I've been trying to get some of the cool Rolling Stones, licks that they got going on, which has been fun. I'm the COO and co-founder of a company called Liquid Talent, and similar to Yarden, we're a mobile job platform, but we focus largely on the 1099 workers. So, really talented developers and designers that want to get hired for part-time projects. We match those folks up with, startups and small businesses that are looking for that type of talent.
Excellent. So let's jump right into it. We've gotten some background in what each of your companies do, and really hearing that a lot of you do come from startup backgrounds before where you are now. So the first question that I will pose for you all, what should students consider when they're looking at either a startup career path or a corporate career path? And Yarden, let's start with you for this one.
So I think, first thing you need to consider is what's your goal? Do you want to work for large companies for the rest of your career, or most of your career, or small companies? When you work at a startup, you are very close to, you have a huge impact, and you're very close to the core team. Oftentimes you meet with investors and VCs, and it gives you great exposure to talking about strategy, to having a lot of impact on the product, or other areas. If you're a marketing guy, you could have impact on product and engineering and usability decisions, etc. And so if you want a very wide scope of exposure and be involved in many different areas, a startup is a great place to be.
Excellent. And I don't mean to interrupt the question just yet, but it looks like Justin from Chat ID is back with us. Justin, can you hear us right now?
Yes, I can. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. So a quick introduction, if you can give us your name.
Yeah, sure. Have we figured out who's from Texas yet? Or do I even give a clue? Howdy, y'all. No, just kidding. I'm guilty as charged. But yeah, so Justin Barris, head of talent for Chat ID. Music selection right now is, whatever's playing. I tend to mix it up a little bit, get a little diversity in there. In terms of Chat ID, I'll give an example of what we do, but we're ultimately a chat function that allows consumers to interact directly with brands while they're on a retailer's website. And the goal is to provide that same functionality to anyone, anywhere, anytime, and regardless of how they're shopping, we still want them to have that. So the example would be you're shopping on Walmart.com, you're looking at Samsung televisions, there's a button in there that says Chat with Samsung. So most of the chat functionality that you see today directly connects you to the retailer's customer support. What we're doing is connecting people directly to the brand so they can get all that information at one time in one place.
Excellent. All right, so in case you missed it, the question that we're on right now, and I will be circling back to Liz for this, but the question that we're on right now is what should students consider when they're looking at either a startup career path or a corporate career path? And Liz, I saw your hand waving from across the internet.
Yeah, no, just to piggyback off what was already said, I completely agree with everything already. I would add that in a startup, you're going to be wearing many different hats, so it doesn't even really matter what your title is. In addition to possibly even sitting in on those meetings with investors, you are also going to be possibly running to answer the door and figuring out, how something's going to get paid, and are you running out of office space, and kind of what comes next, and who should we hire for next, and what roles, and you just, like I said, regardless of the title, you're going to be wearing many different hats, but also with that, you're going to typically have a little bit more autonomy with your work. At least I'm only speaking for myself, but at Trello, we're really looking for people who Obviously, there's a ramp-up period for any new hire and any new position, but we're really looking for people that on day one can kind of run with it and develop and shape the role themselves and need less hand-holding and they get less micromanaging. And so it's just, if you want to make a larger impact with a smaller team, wear many different hats, and kind of grow and help build and help define what roles are instead of being told what your role is, then that, I think, a startup is a better place to be.
Perfect. And Justin, I'd love to get your thoughts on this too.
Sure. So I think it ultimately comes down to preference and style. They're two very different environments. So if you, as an individual, work better in a very structured environment and you need a whole lot of hand-holding and mentorship that is about one specific thing, and you love focusing on just that, then the big company environment would be something that would probably be a preference for you. Whereas if you like the autonomy that Liz referenced, or the flexibility to just do a variety of different things and kind of figure it out as you go, but to me it is one of the most exciting environments. As someone who's worked on both sides, you cannot find a more energetic and exciting place to work than a startup that is growing. It, hands down, it's awesome. So that's my 2 cents.
Perfect. Jörgen, did you have something that you want to add?
Sure. So, I think at the bottom line is at startups, you're creating something from nothing. That's a feeling, that you don't get anywhere else. Other companies that you go into that are already kind of functioning economies and they have revenue and teams and the structure and everything's in place. At a startup, you're creating it from scratch. Most of the time, there is no structure, there are no definitions to roles, etc. And that's, on an emotional and sort of an accomplishment level, that's something that, if you look back 3, 4, 5 years into a job at a startup, and you say, okay, there are 100 people here. When I joined, there was nothing. Maybe there were 5 people and an idea, just starting to build something. There's nothing like that in terms of sense of accomplishment. So I think it's worth it.
Okay, and that raises a really good point, which is that if you're going to a company that has a very new structure, is really starting from the beginning, and they're starting to build out their teams, what are you, as founders, as recruiters, what are you looking for when the vision of the company is still sometimes up in the air, or something that can move very drastically between now and 6 months from now? So when you're looking at a candidate, what is it that you're looking for? And we can you can either take this question as you now, or you when this company was first forming. Rotem, what are your thoughts?
Yes. So I think that we might touch a little bit about this subject as we go along, but what we are currently looking for and always been looking for is for cultural fit. And regardless if we have, outline vision, or we still figure out few stuffs, I'm looking for people who can, work with challenges, work in uncertain situation, and really have the same vision as a person that can match with other employees that we have on our team. So regardless if we have everything, outlined and on the wall written really nicely, or are we still figuring out things for ourselves, I'm looking for people who can see beyond the written word, who can see beyond the touchable or the deployed product at the moment. So this is basically it.
Okay, and Scott, what are your thoughts? I mean, you're obviously working with a lot of different companies through your program. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think culture is really, really big here, and I think when you're starting out, particularly early on, you need people to act like owners, like founders, right? You need people to take ownership for the position and really kind of have a do whatever it takes mentality to help get things done. Because when you're first starting out, there are certain decisions that can really be make or break type decisions for the company. So you always have to be scaling and moving forward, and you want people who can really get aligned with what the vision for the company is, but then also have the vision to understand where the company's going and add their unique take to it. And I think as founders, we look for people that certainly, like at Liquid Talent, for example, we look for people that have a vision what we want to create too, because we have a vision for what the company is, but if we hire right, we hire people who have a lot of self-initiative and are looking to, really add their own kind of feel to it. And so we want to make sure that succeeds and everyone's happy.
Okay, and I'm really curious. So Liz and I had spoken a bit outside of this, and I'm really curious to hear her take on this phrase of culture fit right now.
Yeah, so the term culture fit gets thrown around a lot, and I know inherently what people mean, and we even talk about, what is our culture. Trello certainly has a culture. We actually strive to make sure we're kind of one culture because we're half in-house in New York and half remote, but we actually try not to hire for culture fit because we really want to strive to get a different variety of experiences and backgrounds and different point of views. And so I try to actually say we try and hire for company values, culture values, but basically, ultimately, at the end of the day for us, Joel Spolsky is involved in Trello as much as he has been at Creek Software, where I originally started my career in tech, or at Stack Exchange. And one of the, his famous motto is "smart and gets things done." So I would expand on that and say we're looking for someone who's smart, gets things done, has passion about Trello, actually wants to work at Trello, not just any startup. That's huge for us. And then values fit. So what's values? Before I was talking about kind of being able to work in that autonomy atmosphere and not be micromanaged and not be handheld. So that's, someone like that. But in terms of culture fit, it's nice that we have a lot of people here. And this is just an example. It's nice we have a lot of people here that every Thursday we have game night, and everyone in headquarters plays games. They want to hang out because everyone gets along really well. I don't need someone else who has to just, play games. So I know that doesn't even come into it for me here. I would also add in terms of someone that is kind of can see big picture and understand that we're not just working for this moment, but where can you take the company and how can you contribute? So some passion goes really, really far. Passion about startups and what that means. Passion about the company specifically. Passion about what you want to do and your own career. I just think passion goes really, really far.
Excellent. And a quick pause. So I have plenty of questions on my side. If there is anyone who's watching right now, if you have questions that come up, if you take your mouse and hover over the left side of this window, you should see a little teal or bluish type of box that says Q&A. If you have any questions, just drop them in there. We will make sure that they get answered by our panelists tonight. Anyone up here, do you guys have anything else to add to this question of what you are looking for in a candidate? All right, then we're going to flip this over to the candidate side right now. What should students be looking for? What should anyone who's viewing right now when they're looking at a company? What should their #1 consideration be? Justin, can I start with you for this one?
Yes, absolutely. I would love to speak on this one in particular. I think it's something that when you are either in college or you're trying to identify that next role, a lot of people have a tendency to fall into this mindset of I have to get whatever job that I want, and I don't know if it's more of an innate kind of competition that they just want to get the job. But at the end of the day, you're interviewing that company as well, and you need to find something that is the right fit for you that sets you up for success. And if you are completely free to ask any question of us on the company side that you feel like is important to your success. So don't hesitate to ask questions about that as well. And again, just keep it in mind that this is about you, your career path, and it being the right fit, because in any marriage or company-employee relationship, it's about working for both parties, or it's just not going to be the right fit. So make sure it's the right fit for you as well.
Okay, Yarden, you had some thoughts on this too?
Sure. I think one of the main things, other than product and technology, and try to, understand how big or, fundamental the product of the company can become. You need to look at the team, at the founding team, and look at their backgrounds, and obviously prior success is a huge indicator of their ability to raise additional funding, etc. And if they've sold companies before, or they worked at larger companies and were able to execute really well. And so having a really good track record is obviously key. Making mistakes when you're early in your career and joining startups that fail is not the worst thing that can happen to you. But obviously becoming part of startups that go through success, either grow or get acquired, or go public, or just become large and successful, is probably one of the best things that can happen to you. So if you have startups that went through exits and acquisitions in your career, that's fantastic, and it'll get you almost any job or open the door for you in the future. And so just paying attention to the core team, people that have past track record of success. Oftentimes is are serial entrepreneurs, and that's one of the things that I think is one of the most important things.
There's it's a bit of a tangent, but one of the founders who springs to mind when you say that for me is Dane Atkinson from Samal. So that being said, let's cut this over to you, Rothan.
So yeah, Dane is a really charismatic entrepreneur, and you instantly fall in love with him. But what I can say from my experience while interviewing either students or being a student myself is that I always love hearing students ask about the challenges that the team is currently facing. How will I be active member, or how will I be able to contribute to the specific challenges that your team is currently facing? Either it's for a BD position, engineer position, sales position, any position that a company has to offer. And you can always ask the hiring managers or the people that you are talking with about prior experience that they had with students. What did they like about working with students? What did they find difficult? So you can also see if you're a good match for the company as well. Don't afraid again ever to do mistakes, because if you learn from any mistake that you've taken down the road, this is the best thing that you can ever have for yourself. And here at Samal, we really have a lot of space to not only make mistakes, but to try new angles or add new perspective to current challenges that we have to offer. Most of the students that we had on board provided us with a different kind of perspectives to current problems that we have at the moment, and we loved it. We have an open environment, fully transparent communication going through. So we really cherish that, different angle that students sometimes can bring along.
Excellent. And Scott, what are your thoughts on this?
I think everything that everyone said has been really spot on. So I'll add maybe a little bit addition to it is, if you're a student coming on and someone hires you, I think young people can sometimes have the tendency of thinking like that the founding team or the team that's been there for a while knows everything. But you guys have such a unique and novel perspective, because you're kind of like at the pulse of so much technology and so much of what's happening in the consumer marketplace. So speak up and let your voice be heard, because sometimes the thoughts that you have about a direction that your app can take, or your product can take, or your team can take, are the things that will really change the company for the better. So definitely value your perspective and really trust that if the company is interested in hiring you, that is for a really good reason. So let your full self shine.
All right, let's round this out with Liz.
Yeah, I completely agree. I really love the asking about challenges that was just talked about as well, because asking about the hard challenges, the hard problems, the current tech stack. What have you changed recently? What libraries is the engineering team using? How many open source projects? Do people have side projects as well? Do you encourage? Does your company encourage, creativity and outside of work programs? But also, let's see, I took some notes while everyone else was talking as well. I would also ask how fast the company's hiring. How quickly do you, how many employees are you bringing on? How many developers are you currently hiring? For what teams? What's the structure like? What is the management team structure like? Who sits on management? Is there management? There are a lot of flat organizations in startups. How do decisions get made? Who sets the company vision? Top down, bottom up, side to side. There's all these different configurations. I would ask about the person who you're speaking with throughout the entire interview process. Ask about them. When did they join the company? Why are they still there? What do they think the #1 best thing about the company is? How many people have recently left? Are people leaving for life reasons, or are there opportunities? What was the size of the company a few months ago? Figure out what the problems are, identify the problems, figure out how you can be that person that comes in with these new fresh ideas that you just learned about, and your point of view, and then find out enough about them, about the company, the people you're talking to, what makes them passionate, what languages they love best, and then try and kind of plug yourself in to the story they're telling you. I just think it's really important that kind of falls under passion, right? Showing that you're interested in listening to the people that you're talking to. Why are they there? Why are they still there? What do they love working on? What have they not enjoyed working on recently, and how did the company fix that? Is that something to be fixed? There's just, if I'm talking to a candidate and they have no questions for me at all about the company, position, the people I work with, they're just missing out, because they'll miss out on that I happen to be working with most of these people for over 10 years, and so I have a lot I can tell of them. I'm just not going to offer it up. So you never know who you're speaking to. Ask questions. Be prepared. Do your research on the company and the people that you're going to be speaking with.
So that leads to another question, which is, what should a candidate go in already knowing? You mentioned a lot of questions to ask in the interview and to ask the people that you're speaking with throughout. But when a candidate is first sitting down with you, I guess let me put it this way. What is the one question that they should not ask in an interview? Other than, what do you do?
Yeah.
I just real quick, I'll tell one interesting fact. So I actually worked for a startup company that had grown really, really fast, and we were already at a place of being very successful and well on our way to an IPO. And we had a candidate that walked in for their interview, actually I think was on the elevator with the president of the company and engaged in conversation. Oh, and who are you? So that was a little bit of a challenge. Doing research above and beyond just the individuals that you're meeting with. Try to get the list of those names in advance so you can find out a little bit more on LinkedIn about their backgrounds and know who you're going to be speaking to, because you can cater your conversation to that a little more directly. But also find out who leadership is. If you do have an opportunity to cross paths with them, it'd be great to make a first impression that's a good one.
I would just piggyback off that real quick. In addition to finding out about the internal group and team, find out about competitors. Just the other day, someone came in here and in the interview mentioned a system, a tool that we should be using that makes absolutely no sense for Trello to be using. And it was immediately, everything was going really well, and then it was like, research in the company, but also the market, I think, is a really great idea.
Scott, what is your #1 question not to ask?
I think, there are probably multiple, but I would say, particularly for the first interview, you don't want to ask how much is the pay. I think that, you should really be focused on, and I think Liz touched upon this earlier, it really is about like understanding, particularly because there are a lot of startups out there. There's actually a lot of opportunities. You want to have a really specific idea for why you're interviewing at that company. So the more that you know about the company and the structure and what they do, I think the better. I think that will shine through. And the more prepared that you are and the way that you present yourself to that company, I think the compensation stuff will sort of take care of itself. If it doesn't come up after like 2 or 3 interviews, then that's probably time to maybe. I think if the company is in the news and they're a Series A or whatever, and they're raising, like, chances are it's going to be an okay salary. And I think the most important thing is it the right fit for you, and then taking the other stuff from there.
And Rotem, what about it, Samal?
I don't think there is right or wrong questions in general, but I think that the attitude of a candidate who's coming without having any clue about the company values or having any research about what we do or what we value here in regards to every employee here or the team as a whole. So just the other day, a story that comes to mind, I interviewed a candidate who wasn't that looking so much for a leadership position, who wasn't that looking so much for hard work, who was just looking for his next gig. And I really felt the difference between someone who just wants to go to work from 9 to 5 to someone who really wants to be part of something. And maybe it goes along the line about, what are your working hours here? We don't have working hours. We really don't. We feel that everyone is a valuable contributor to the team, to the project, to the mission. So you really need to be aware of what is that where is your heart set, or where do you see yourself in the next year or so?
Yeah, I second Rotem on that, just like on 80s music. I think especially when you're early in your career, you don't want to come to like an interview situation and just make it about yourself. Of course, at the end of the day, it is in the long run, but especially in startups, just like Rotem said, don't be worried about hours. Don't be overly worried about comp early on in the conversation. And and just like Scott said, it'll come on its own. And if you seem like you're a great contributor, and you'll be well rewarded. So.
All right. On the topic of being well rewarded, as granular or as broad as you care to go, the compensation topic. So, a lot of students, when they're considering a startup, I think there always is in their minds a risk associated with it, whether it's a not so steady paycheck or taking a pay cut from where they might end up immediately after school. So what is your big piece of advice to a student when they're looking at a compensation package coming out of school and looking at a startup? Liz, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think a student needs to look at the entire package. Okay, so with a startup, typically, again, I'm just speaking from my perspective from Trello, you're going to get equity. And so you need to ask a lot of questions about that equity, and you need to understand the value. You need to ask about work-life balance. You need to ask about the perks and benefits. So at Trello, I can say this because I say this to all my candidates. Trello, we have market rate competitive offer packages. So what that means is Trello, located in New York City, we're a Series A right now. We're a startup. We're about 42 people and growing. I'm hiring on average 2 to 3 new employees a month. So I'm comparing our packages to other startups in New York City that are around Series A. Comparable would not be a financial giant bank. Comparable would not be Microsoft. It'd be comparing apples and oranges. We have very nice salaries. But it's also about the equity. It's about understanding your equity. It's about asking a lot of detailed questions about the benefits as well. And also in terms of other perks and benefits that aren't really as tangible. Again, from a personal experience, the work-life balance, we have a lot of, I know this is for students, but we have a lot of working parents at this company, which is kind of rare for startup. And so more experienced candidates really love knowing that there's value in that. There's no set time to be in here, set time to leave. Anyway, so I would say ask questions about the whole package, ask questions about the equity, what is your percentage, dig deep into that. Know that sometimes that can mean that the actual base salary is a little bit lower, but what is your equity? And when you compare packages, just keep mindful of all that information.
All right, we will get back to this in a second. We're about halfway through this panel right now, so for any latecomers, this is the New York City Tech Talent Draft virtual panel. We're talking about startup career paths, and the current question right now is focusing on compensation packages. That being said, Justin.
Sure, just two main points that I want to make. One is risk, and a lot of people assume that startups are more risky than big companies, and while that may be the case in some environments, in others, provided that that startup has great leadership, great financials, and you do all your due diligence along the way to make sure that that is the startup that you're ultimately going to go to work for, and that that's the right fit. You can look at big companies that do layoffs every 6 months, and those people don't have any less risk than the startup world does. That being said, the startup world is it's a unique environment in that if you land at the right one early enough, this little bit of salary that you're giving up on the front end in terms of your base, if that company does get to a liquidity event, you will, depending on when you join the company, you could financially be set up very, very well. If you are an entrepreneur that wants to go out and start your own thing, a lot of people use that to fund their next venture. So there's a lot of opportunity to make a significant chunk of cash if you're in the right one early enough and they do get to that point.
If I may jump here to add something about equity, I think equity is great, but I think two things you really need to pay attention to. One is the fact that you're really early in your career. So if you go into a startup that's already established, and by established I mean a company like Trello is pretty established, 40 people, Series A, very successful company, the amount of equity that you can get is probably marginal, especially in larger companies. You may not agree on this, Liz, but I think equity is a little bit misleading because companies you need to remember that companies go through dilution when they get further investment. And so if you go into a company, for example, in the size or a stage of my company, which is a seed stage company, we're going to go through, hopefully if all goes well, at least 2 more financing rounds, or at least 1. And in every financing round, your equity gets diluted anywhere between 20 and 40%. The earlier you get equity in a company, the more it will get diluted, and the first few times it'll get diluted, it'll be larger percentages. And so keep that in mind. Also, obviously, since this will be your first or second or third job, pretty early in your career, the amount of equity you get is relatively small compared to 5 or 10 years in. When you go into a VP or a C-level position, you go into a startup, you get whole points of equity. So just something to keep in mind. I actually think that don't let the equity sort of spin your head when you're early in a company that's already established. If you go into a situation where you're joining 2 founders and they're just starting a company or they just got a little bit of funding and it's very early, then you can get a more impactful number of shares or percentages or percentage points. And in terms of what to expect, on equity, whole points are, this is saved for very senior people. It's usually, and you can see that on sites like AngelList, etc. Companies publish the amount of equity they give out. It's basis points.
Yeah, just a little, rebuttal. This goes back to asking questions, right? So we are completely transparent up front of exactly what our equity means. So the people that ask the most questions get the best answers. They're talking to our CEO in very detailed meetings and our head of ops and legal about what exactly Trello in particular I think means. And actually, I guess we do things a little bit differently because for us, it doesn't have to do with title at all, and it doesn't have to do with when you're doing the company. All our engineers and developers are actually on the exact same formula, regardless of if they're just graduating or if they have 20 years experience. It's based on some other things. So I think it just goes back to asking the questions and actually finding out because, as you can tell, even amongst us, we obviously, startups do. Not every startup is the same, and we're not all cookie cutters. So it goes back to asking questions and actually finding out what are you being given, right? It's a lottery ticket. Is this lottery ticket worth taking a chance on? Do I think I can one day cash in this lottery ticket? And in order to find that out, you have to ask a lot of questions. But then you also, we understand the day-to-day, so you want to be able to have a really good package and salary as is. So that goes back to the competitive market rate. And I agree, it shouldn't just all be equity because it is a lottery ticket. So again, figure out who you're talking to, what the company is about, and what you're actually being offered.
The other thing on cash, sorry to jump in again, is a lot of people look at and they're really focused on that annual salary number, and I think oftentimes people are it's just the wrong thing because usually you work at a company 3, 4, 5 years, hopefully, each time, and what you want to know is what is going to be my annual raise. Like you want to look at a 3 or 4 year time frame and look at that whole thing as a package of what you're going to be making there.
Excellent. Before we close out the topic, Samal is very vocal about their transparency
Right.
when it comes to salary, so would love to get your thoughts on this.
Right. So Samal has this crazy transparency policy. Because we are a data company, we would like to be as transparent with our customer as we are with one another. So once you join the Samal team and pass our onboarding process, you get full access to all other employees' salary and stock options. So it's not easy. It's not easy information to digest at first. But what we would like to, the idea behind of that is that we just give you the whole information once you join the team, and it really allows me as a recruiter to talk with the candidate on the same level, because we have all of our employees on similar salary bands. I will not decompensate or overcompensate a candidate just because of his years of experience, either he's a female or a male. But the idea of transparency is to give you as an employee the full picture about how do we compensate employees here, what do we really work on, and just once you talk about the elephant in the room, it just doesn't exist anymore, and we can really focus about what we are here for and what is our mission.
Yeah, I agree. Just to also jump in, I talk salary with candidates as early on as possible. The process is they do a coding interview first. Then they talk with me, and our process can be lengthy, and so I hate for a candidate to get all the way to the end and not have certain needs met. And I can say, no one stops the conversation of interviewing after talking to me. But basically, if they have a salary requirement, I just want to know about it so I can let them know. If they want to know exactly what they would be offered at the end, I'll tell them. I know because we have a really clear way of doing it. So I agree about being as transparent as you can, as soon as possible, and that's really hard. I'm amazed that you guys do it once they get in as well, because you can kind of figure it out.
Everything is out there.
Yeah. How many employees do you have?
50-ish at the moment, and we're recruiting like crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, if we can do a quick sprint down the line, I'm going to do it by what I see on my screen, but just so we can get team sizes next to each other. Justin, how many people are at Chat ID?
Yep, so we are in the process of hiring our 31st and 32nd. We had 14 at the end of last year, so you could see our company grow by as much as 5x this year in headcount.
And Liz, you had said 40?
Yeah, so and to give a timeline as well, last June when Trello split out of Fog Creek Software and became its own company, we were 20 employees, and we are at 43 today. We have, you can go to our jobs board, we obviously have some more open positions, so in the next few months we'll probably hit 50, and then we'll probably take a deep breath and hit pause. But I say that now. So who knows? It's a startup, right? So anything can happen, anything can change. But right now we're 43 people with a few more onboarding in the next few weeks.
Okay, Scott, how many people are with Liquid Talent?
Yeah, so we have actually two co-founders. So it's me and my business partner Alex. We have an in-house iOS developer. We're hiring 2 more developers that are starting on Monday. So right now we're about 5, and we'll be growing to 7 to 8 by early June.
And
So all you other guys are like practically like Apple and Microsoft. I mean, come on, 40 people.
When I started at Fog Creek, I was the 5th employee. So
Right,
I
it's fun.
grew with Fog Creek and then shrunk, and then Stack Exchange, and shrunk back down.
Right, right.
Yeah, it's funny.
Cool.
And Yarden, how many employees are you at?
So we're 10. We started the year with 4. Really, in December we were 4, so we hired about 6 people in the past few months, and we're looking to hire 1 or 2 more people, engineers.
Excellent. Yeah, I think a big goal for all of us tonight, viewers and panelists, is to add a few more folks to your teams. So that being said, one question we did have from a student: if you're a new graduate, what is the best way to demonstrate that you're prepared to wear so many hats in a dynamic environment? Does your past experience tell it all? Or is there another way to express this?
I think it goes to a cultural fit. You know, you just need to sort of show you're willing and able, and you're flexible, and you'll tackle challenges that are thrown at you, and you'll always try your best. And yeah, I think that's really early in your career. That's all you need to show.
Okay, I guess, sorry, if you can dig a little bit deeper, how would a student show that to you?
I guess at that point, you know, if you've tried, you know, during your college years, you tried a bunch of different things, and you know, you tried to tackle some, you know, a variety of challenges. That would show me that someone is you know, exploring different things and is able to kind of open their mind. But also during a conversation in an interview, you can pretty much tell. You know, whether that person is open or they're very rigid, or, you know, what the tendencies are.
I would, if the particular student has past internship experience, I would get as detailed as possible about what they worked on, the size of the teams they worked on, what tip, never really speak negatively about your past companies or internships. You can spin anything to not be talking badly about the people you worked with or the company. But you can talk about what you enjoyed and maybe what you didn't enjoy as much. And with your research and with the questions that you ask, you can tailor kind of the experience that you have, whether it's from the classroom, side projects, or past internships, to talking about being a valuable member to the team, helping contribute and do, you know, be valuable for wherever you're needed. Kind of that idea of not, you know, I'm going to be rigid in this box. You said this was my job responsibilities and I'm going to do the X. No, like, this is now the important thing. Great, I'll do it. If you have any personal examples of just getting the job done, whether that was something in the classroom or the internship, talk about it. And talk about how that's where you thrive and that's where you got the most rewarding experience, because you started off doing one thing, something else became the priority, or a fire had to be put out, and you became that person. That's going to show that you're ready to take on whatever was thrown at you.
Okay, Rotem?
Yeah, sorry, just to add to that, when I interview a graduate, I look less of the actual experience, more of, the personal experience that you had from that, or what did you take from going through this specific experience. I always love to see people who are self-aware about their pros and cons as an individual, or how were they able to manage with a big team? How were they able to manage with some blurry task? How were they able to manage when they had a really tough deadline or they really wanted to achieve something and they failed? How do you take failures? What do you learn from the process? Because working in startups, it's like, riding a roller coaster or running a marathon in a really high speed. You can never know when you're going to reach the final line. And I really need for you as a candidate to understand what you're stepping into and what is your best of trade, what are the areas that you need to be aware of and work on, because things here tend to get sometimes personal. And I need you to be at your best and to know yourself as a person in order to be part of a team. So that's what I'm looking for, regardless if you're a graduate or have about 10 years of experience, by the way. You should be a person first.
Yeah, just
Oh, all right. Looks like Justin is frozen right now. So one thing. Oh, are you back with us, Justin? Okay. One question I want to move on to. We have about 10 minutes left, so maybe time for two more questions. What does your hiring process look like? So we have room for maybe two answers on this one before the final question. So if we can start with Scott for this.
Sure. Okay. Our hiring process is we tend to move pretty quickly. I think we hire sort of like our platform, which is we tend to reach out through the people that we know, and we find that the more networking that we can do and be a kind of like be a part of organizations and events that you kind of want to be a part of yourself, and take referrals. I think referrals are great, and I think that we make hiring way more. And again, I'm a small team. I've started a number of companies. I've always hired pretty quickly because I think I've been clear about what we're looking for, and then I just try to find candidates that can do those things and show promise. So we tend to have a pretty simple interview process. Background, interest, passion, vision, and then take it from there.
Okay. And let's see, Liz. I think I saw.
Yeah. So all of our positions here, what doesn't matter what the role is for, technical, not technical. There's going to be some task-oriented element to the interview process, but I'll stick to engineering. So the process is the same for everybody. It starts off with my developers doing the actual resume reviews. It's getting reviewed by our engineering team and the hiring manager for that team that's looking to hire someone. If you move past the resume stage, you're going to have a 30-minute coding interview with that same developer. We do it short. We used to do it longer. One great thing about a startup is you constantly adapt and you don't have to stick to something because it's the way you've always done it. So we cut it because it actually, going longer, didn't change the results. So you're going to do a 30-minute coding interview. Then if you move on from that, you're going to speak with myself. I'm going to go over what the rest of our interview process looks like. I'm going to answer any questions that you may have, and you should have questions. I'm going to go over salary. I'm going to go over if you're looking to work in our New York office or work remotely. After speaking with me, should we move on, you have two more developer interviews, back-to-back, an hour each, via appear.in, which is a video service that we use to do our interviews. After that, she moves to the next stage. You're having an hour interview with our VP of product. After that, she move on to the final stage. You're having a conversation with our CEO. So that was it quickly in a nutshell, but that's our interview process for the engineering team.
Okay, excellent. We have about 5 more minutes. So one question that I might ask our panelists off screen is, what is one thing that students can do now in order to, let me just pull up the rest of this question, in order to prepare themselves if they want to work for a New York City tech startup? So I'll send that question to you guys since we have 5 minutes. Hopefully we get to it, but in case we don't. One question that we had from a student was, do you have any recommendations for someone trying to join a tech firm with non-technical backgrounds? Rotem.
Yeah, I mean, actually, this is a great question because I don't have any technical background, and I've worked since I graduated from in technical companies. So I guess that you don't need to have the specific technical skills. You need to be someone who is willing to learn new stuff, new things, and in a relatively quick pace. You'll need to be a team member. You need to be a player. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. You don't need to be an engineer or graduate from computer science with straight A's. Learn to someone who is open-minded and willing to learn new stuff as they go along.
Yeah, and I think it's being proactively passionate about it. So I want to see if you don't have a CS degree, for example, that you've got example after example of you going out and creating something from nothing. I want to see that you're passionate about a specific language or technology in general. So that's what I would look for.
All right. Is there anybody else who would like to jump in on this question?
I would just say, yeah, just continue to read as much as you can. So if you're not like a technical computer science background, you should show that you have a serious interest by reading as much as you can. Trying to code some of your own things, just to show, even if you're not going to be a coder or developer, that you can talk the talk you understand the language and can kind of add in so you know what's going on.
Yeah, train yourself, or you can go to a short coding course or something that's a little more on the technical side that would at least get you the understanding of how stuff works and how code works and how software is built. I think that's probably one of the most essential things to have working for a tech firm.
Excellent. So we might have time to get to this then. So again, final question, action item. What is one concrete thing that students can do right now to prepare themselves to work at a New York City tech startup?
Get an internship in a New York City startup?
Rotem?
Do your research. Have this Excel sheet open. Write down all New York City startups that you have your eyes set on. Learn the company. Find people on LinkedIn. Do the research. Learn the product, and just be a go-getter.
Yeah, I mean, to do that research, go on AngelList, go on the Muse, watch the videos, go on stalk people on Twitter and LinkedIn, but in a way that is not creepy. Yeah, do the research, see what kind of jobs are actually out there, start comparing, like look at what titles are being used. What do certain titles mean? Titles at startups can be very different than titles at other companies. What does it mean? An example, I was hiring, I just hired, and they're starting next month for a developer advocate position. We called that for a while and listed it developer evangelist, a community developer, I don't know. We ended up going with developer advocate, but we changed it like 5 different times. I have a Twitter feed with a bunch of people in the community about what they call it at their company, and basically the same role is called something different everywhere. But figure that out. Figure out that lingo. What does this mean? What are they looking for? What will I actually be doing? How can I apply my skill set and passion to what they are looking for? And how can I figure out what problems they have and then show them I'm the one to solve it?
Yeah, and you want to know what the landscape is. I think one of the great ways to see what companies are hiring, like go to VC portfolio websites and see, like, out of let's say Union Square Ventures or whoever has a lot of companies, see what companies are hiring, what positions are open. Because I do think that there's a lot of opportunities out there. I would imagine, I think everyone on this panel has said that they're hiring, and if they're not hiring, then they just hired. But the more specific you can be about what is out there and what you're looking to do, rather than, hey, I just want to work in New York City startup, the better chances you'll have.
And Justin, I think we've revealed you as the Austinite in the group.
Sure.
Do you have any thoughts, that being the case, on how someone could land a New York City startup job?
I think it goes back to what everyone's kind of touched on, and that's showing preparation. I love hearing that someone did due diligence in advance, and my company was a list of 100 that they started with, and they didn't try to go interview with all 100 of them. What they did was narrow that down based on what they wanted out of their careers and how they felt like that aligned to my company, and then they were very deliberate in saying, hey, I did some research, here's what I know about your company, I think I can fix some of these types of challenges that you're facing, and just being proactive.
Excellent. So that rounds out the hour. A huge thank you to all of our panelists for taking part in tonight's virtual panel. As mentioned, this is part of the New York City Tech Talent Draft. A few other ways, if you enjoyed this, to get involved. Even if you didn't enjoy it, here are some different ways to get involved. We also do on-campus events. We do adventures to New York City where we'll tour different startups. There will be a follow-up email sent to everyone with some further details about it. Again, I'm Brian. I work with a New York City startup called Uncubed. As you can tell, we're very biased against the cubicle and towards startups, so if you have any questions, I'm here to answer those as well. So again, big thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you to everyone who tuned in.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Bye.